Well, welcome to our lesson on slope-intercept form. In this lesson, we will be graphing equations by using the slope-intercept form of a linear equation, and we will be writing linear equations in slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. In this equation, m is the slope of the line, and b is the y-intercept. And you will recall a y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and that's the point where x equals 0. To put an equation in slope-intercept form, we need to get the y variable alone. In other words, we need to solve the equation for y. If we solve it for y and then write the x term and then the y-intercept or the constant term, then it will be in slope-intercept form. We will also be graphing lines using slope-intercept form, and to do this, we'll first plot the y-intercept. Then from that point, we will use the slope to plot another point, which will allow us to connect the 2 points and graph the line. Let's take a look at some examples. To find the slope and the y-intercept, what we want to do is make sure that we have the equation solved for y. So in this equation, we have y equals 5x plus 7. So that tells us that the slope is equal to 5, and the y-intercept is equal to 7. So here's the slope, y equals mx plus b. Okay, in the part B, this is not solved for y, so we need to subtract 6x on both sides. Remember, we only subtract it once on each side of the equal sign. These cancel, and I have minus 3y plus 3 equals minus 6x. Well, I want to get the 3 out of there as well, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. When I do that, my 3's add to 0. Here's my equal sign, and I have minus 3y is equal to minus 6x minus 3. A lot of negatives here. Then we're going to divide everything by negative 3. Every single term by negative 3. And this will give us the equation y equals negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. We have our x term. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a plus 1. So now we can find the slope and the y-intercept. Our slope is 2, so that represents our slope. And our y-intercept is plus 1. And there you have it. So you can do letters C and D and bring those answers to class. Graphing in slope-intercept form. First of all, it says graph each line using the slope-intercept form of the equation. So we have in the first one y equals 6x. This is already in slope-intercept form. So in this equation, the y-intercept is actually 0. Okay, it's not there. So this tells us our slope is equal to 6. Well, we always want to write the slope as a fraction. We need two numbers, so we can write it as 6 over 1, or we could write it as negative 6 over negative 1. That also gives us a positive value of 6. Our y-intercept is 0. So we always start from the y-intercept, so 0, 0 is our y-intercept. And then from there, what we would want to do is we would want to go, this is a positive direction on top. Remember, it's rise over run. So a positive direction on the top would be up, and a positive direction on the bottom would be right. A negative direction on the top would be down. A negative direction on the bottom would be left. So we can go up 6 and write 1, or from our y-intercept, we could go down 6 and left 1. So you can see that's where those points come from the slope. Always graph the y-intercept first, and from there, find another point using your slope. In example B, we need to solve it for y. And if we do that, we get 3y equals negative 5x minus 9. And then dividing by 3. Probably should write this out for you. So we have 3y equals negative 5x minus 9. Subtract 5x and subtract 9 from both sides. And then divide everything by 3. And we end up with y equals negative 5/3 x minus 3. So now we can identify our slope being negative 5/3 and our y-intercept being negative 3. Now we can use those two pieces of information to go ahead and graph our line. We always start with the y-intercept of negative 3. So the y-axis is the vertical axis, so go down 3 from the origin and plot a point. From there, we can use our slope of negative 5/3. So we could go down 5 and right 3, or we can go up 5 and left 3. So remember, we need to associate that negative. It can either be negative 5 over positive 3, or it could be positive 5 over negative 3. Okay, so this would be down, this one would be up, this one would be right, this one would be left on the bottom. So that's how you get both sides of your line. Writing equations. Write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. If we have a slope of 1/3 and a y-intercept of 6, well, this is just a matter of plugging in 1/3 where you see the letter M and 6 where you see the letter B. Very straightforward. Y equals 1/3 x plus 6. If our slope is 1 and our y-intercept is 0, again, plugging those values in, but we don't even need to write the plus 0, so that would simplify to y equals x. Now here's one that's a little different. What if we have a slope of 4 and we know it goes through the point 25? Well, we can use the point 25 to find our y-intercept. Okay, if we don't have our y-intercept but we have a point on the line, we need to find the y-intercept. So we always start with a slope-intercept form. We'll plug in 4 for our slope. Okay, we can do that over here. And we're going to use 2, 5. That's an x and a y variable. So 2 is x, 5 is y. So we're going to plug those in right here for x and for y. So here we go. So that would give us 5 is equal to 4 times 2 plus b. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. And then we need to subtract 8 from both sides. So b would be negative 3. Well, now that we know what b is, I went ahead and I plugged that into our equation. So here's the piece of information we need. We know the slope is 4 now, and the y-intercept is negative 3. So those are our two pieces of information. So we can go ahead and write the equation of the line. Our last slide says a caterer charges a fee of $200 plus $25 per plate. Write an equation to model the cost of the caterer as a function of the number of people attending. Well, it's going to cost $25 for every person that attends, plus an additional $200 as a flat fee. So our function or our equation would be y is equal to 25 times the number of people, we're going to let that be x, plus 200. So this is in slope-intercept form, where the slope is the number in front of x, so that's 25. And in words, what that means is the cost per plate. What is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is 200. And what does it mean in words? Well, that's the fee that the caterer charges, the flat rate fee. Letter D says find the cost of catering an event with 200 guests. Well, that's asking us just to put in for the value of x, the number 200. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we get y equals 25 times 200 plus 200, which is $5,200. And that is it for slope-intercept form of linear equations. See you in class.